Hello, and welcome to Reinventing Mental Health, where we are exploring root causes for mental health and talking to people about their journeys. Today, we have with us our friend Heather Emerson. She is a veteran, a Harvard educated journalist, and an award winning entrepreneur who knows what it takes to build something from nothing. After overcoming early setbacks in her life, she went on to found and scale a nationally recognized farm to table company, earning seven-figure revenues and recognition from outlets like Forbes. So thank you, Heather, for joining us today.
Yes, happy to
Welcome.
be here. Yeah.
So can you share with us a little bit about your journey through life with mental health and into your career?
Yeah, I think the word mental health is a really big, it's a really big word.
Mhm.
And for the longest time, I think it was really specifically um, used for a lot of the um, I don't want no diagnoses that we're used to, like depression and
Mhm.
anxiety, and there's a whole there's a
Yep.
lot of those.
Yep.
But the way that I look at mental health as it relates to my life is yes, including those, but also my mindset overall.
Mhm.
And it wasn't until recently, literally in the last 2 years, that I realized that I had a really, really negative mindset.
Okay.
And so, but in the beginning, um, it's just the negative emotions that I felt and that I experienced was just anger and depression and to traditional talk therapy
Mhm.
for 5 years. It was described as trauma, like that I had been through a lot of trauma.
Mhm.
And um, I remember when I heard that word the first time, trauma. I remember when my therapist said that word, and I was like, yes, like I finally felt like, yes, that is it. So, um, all that to say, in the beginning, I guess if you just want an overview, it started as, addressing the traditional things that we think of when we think of mental health. But then since completing that 5 years of talk therapy, it's been a whole other journey, and
Okay.
it's led into mindset shift.
Okay.
Um, I think that the biggest there were there was a couple points in my life that required me
Mhm.
to see a professional.
Mhm.
When they tell you that I'm gonna go talk to a professional.
Mhm.
One was my parents' divorce, and then the other was I was in the military and then got in trouble and went to military prison for 12 months.
Okay.
So those two events both put me into therapy.
Mhm.
When I was a kid, it wasn't a lot. It was like I went a few times. My parents were getting divorced hard. I was acting out, rebelling, that sort of thing.
Normal. Yep.
Yeah. Um, that's funny. I just feel like when you're a preteen, everything is hard, and you add in any type of complication in life on top of that.
Well, yeah, your hormones are just starting to flow then, and they make your brain not work the way that we want it to. And yeah.
Yeah.
So,
So the very first very first thing that happened out of prison was I changed my diet.
okay.
And that was the first empowering thing that I think I had ever done in my life. I was young. I was like 20.
What were the changes that you made in your diet?
Well, so I got a job at Whole Foods.
Okay.
Opened this flagship store I think how long have you been in Austin?
5 years.
Okay, so very new.
Mhm.
That store has been around for 20 years,
Oh, wow.
but it used to not be there.
Okay.
So when it opened, it was a really big deal.
Mhm.
Um, the store was beautiful, and I got hired at the smoothie bar.
Okay.
And the smoothie bar was connected to the raw foods bar. Are you familiar with raw foods?
Mhm.
So it's all plant based. It's, and everything. nothing is cooked.
Okay.
You can blend, you can air dry, you can dehydrate, you can, what are some other techniques? You can do anything but cook it you can't make it go past like 108 degrees or something like that. I don't know what it is. It's 118. I don't remember. Anyways, I started seeing people and sit at the counter and order raw foods who were in a place, they were staying at a place called OHI, Optimum Health Institute.
Okay.
So Optimum Health Institute is where people go for like deep healing.
Okay.
And there's one in North Austin, and I think there's another location in California, Southern California. But it is beautiful, and you basically do like meditation, and you drink wheatgrass shots and do colonics. Like that's what and you do walks in nature.
Okay.
And a lot of people who are in physical
like
pain, cancer, like a lot of that, people will go there because the healing is pretty intense, you know. And so yeah, so I'm sitting at the bar with these people from, they're coming in once a week. They would come in for their meal, and what we were serving was considered like a feast compared to what they're eating there. And I overheard stories of people who had gray hair who would get the color back in their hair from doing these like raw foods and these protocols at OHI. And I would hear stories of people in stage 4 cancer no longer having cancer.
And that's amazing to hear.
And I was like fresh out of prison, okay? And I'm like, I can't even believe I got a job at Whole Foods. And I'm like, wow. And it just, the guy I worked with, I worked next to, I was in Smoothie Bar, his name was Spencer. And Spencer would drink like those, like not just gallon, like spirulina. Like he was a raw foodist, and he said, like, he's like, you can do magical things when your body does not. And I don't know. I was like, I'm in a really shitty spot. I'm on a bag of medication because I was highly medicated coming out of prison. That sounds cool. And this guy, like Spencer, was like high on life. I was like, I want to be high on life. Like he was just always like buzzing and okay. So I just went vegetarian. Like that was literally all I did. And it changed my life. Like think that change alone reduced some sort of inflammation in my body. Because my body felt different, my brain felt different, my senses felt different. Felt like I could see better. I felt like I could smell things differently. I felt like I could just tap into things around me better. And the only explanation for that is lowering inflammation in your body, right? Like your brain can work better. So that's why I'm assuming that's all an assumption, but I believe that that's what happened. So that was the first big change. And then the 5 years of talk therapy that I did was really life-changing because I learned a couple of really big things in there. I learned that we all need a witness to our story. And sometimes just having a witness to your story is enough to release like a lot of things. And sometimes that's literally all you need. Sometimes you need more than that. Sometimes there's like a million layers underneath there. A lot of times there are, but sometimes just that top layer is enough to like help you function as a normal human again. And how important it is. And that's typically what we want to see in our family structures is witnessing, validation, and support, even if they don't get it, they don't get you, like having your uh-oh, are we there? Okay. Those are a lot of things that I didn't have.
Okay.
So my experience as a child was more a lot of emotional unavailability, and whenever concerns or whenever I would express concerns or needs, they were dismissed as, just not felt like, I think like I felt like I was living in cuckoo world. I'm like, how is what I'm saying not important? Like that's how I felt growing up. So I learned that in talk therapy that we all need a witness to our story. And I learned that one of the biggest lessons I learned was how we close one chapter determines the next. And I don't know if that's psychology. I don't know if there's is there
So
some-
there's different aspects to that. There's also spiritual aspects to that, inside of religion and church. So it depends on which perspective that you're coming from. But yeah, that's it.
Was a published researcher and professor at UT, and she would actually teach other grad school students how to be therapists. So she was very, very highly awarded and regarded and all of that. And it wasn't until many, many years later, I visited her like a few years ago. I'm still in touch with her. She made a distinction in the session that she said, okay, I'm going to put on a coaching hat. And then she kind of gave advice. Should we still go? Okay, here we go. I don't know if what she was saying about closing one chapter and going into the next was, I don't know if she was doing it back then or not.
Okay.
I have a feeling it was coming from a researched scientific way the brain works. But yeah, she said like when you're going to transition in any sort, like make sure you do it with the same like flair and excitement and enthusiasm that you would when you're starting something new.
Right.
Because it will carry over. And the same thing will happen if you don't do it. Like if you leave a chapter and it's chaotic, that chaos will follow. Now, again, the way I'm describing it was she probably communicated it too.
That's how you took it in, and that's how you've been able to use it.
Yes, absolutely. I just, there's different lanes, like you said. So I don't know which one, but I don't know which one is it. My perception is, but it's one of those. It's true. It's totally true. So witness to our story, how we close a chapter. And then the last thing that I learned is that the importance of therapy is something as simple as knowing your journey. Like when I got into therapy, I was telling her something about my childhood, and she said that contradicts what you've told. And she said, I don't think you know your story. And that's the work that we're going to do here. We're going to,
Okay.
And so I remember a session where she said, imagine going down a long road and how did she tell it? I'm going to tell it all wrong. Essentially, where you've been, you still need to keep that map.
Right. Yeah.
And you need to know that map, and you don't have to you just need to have it in your pocket to reference. And that stuck with me. And since then, actually, I actually worked with an organization, a nonprofit that helped women both behind bars and beyond bars help tell their story.
Okay.
They did community circles and lots of healing practices, and because of that experience so many years ago, right out of prison with her, I knew the power of knowing your story.
Absolutely.
It absolutely determines how you function in present day. maybe not good, but like there's resolve.
Right.
Like that's so important.
Mhm.
So those are the things that I pulled out of there. Is there anything I need to, am I missing anything there?
No, that, so along your journey, while we all have ups and we have downs, especially while we're going through the journey and we're kind of like pulling off the bandage for the wounds that we're trying to heal. So do you remember times where it was particularly difficult while going through the healing process?
That 5 years was really intense because I was so confused about my life
Mhm.
and organized my brain.
Okay.
Um, maybe longer. I went to therapy every week. And I think in 5 years, I missed one appointment
Oh, wow, you're very dedicated.
because she told me something she told me. I don't remember what she said, but she basically said this only works when you actually show up.
Yeah.
And so I remember for the first year driving to the appointment, not wanting to pass anybody out there who's not feeling like it's working and feeling like, why am I going? Why am I spending this money? Like, why? We had our first breakthrough.
Yeah, and people don't give themselves enough grace. Like they assume that because you're going to a counselor, you're all of a sudden like it's just going to happen. But it doesn't work like that.
No.
It is a very slow process. And there's so many layers that you have to unpack and explore before you sometimes get to that first breakthrough. So in addition to the therapy that you were you doing any other things on the side?
No.
Okay.
I wasn't like, I wasn't taking care of myself. I mean, I was still eating vegetarian and that was really empowering, but like I was in college. So I was drinking, I was, just not taking care, I wasn't working out. I don't believe that I surrounded myself with, I mean, some people are great, but I don't think that all of my chosen acquaintances were necessarily positive for me. And all of that matters.
It does.
All of that affects this big word, mental health.
Yeah. Your community has a huge impact on your mental health.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like that's what I mean with like mental health is like you can't say, well, this is my mental health and these are my friends. Those are the same freaking things.
Yes, they are.
Because those are the people that affect your brain, like what they're saying, the messages, how they see the world. That is rubbing off on you. Even if you feel that you are so different than that other human, it is, you are absolutely absorbing that energy and that frame of mind and all of that. So anyways, just to be very clear, I was not doing any other thing to take care of myself because I didn't know all those things. And even if I had known all those things, I mean, I think I probably did. That's what they tell us, right? But I just wasn't doing them. I didn't rebellion or whether I was just didn't have the capacity to, I was like, well, I'm doing therapy. That's all I have capacity for. What I don't remember, but like I just know that was it. And then I didn't do anything for a while after that because she fired me because she said, um, I don't need her anymore, which was what she told me. First of all, it was she I think for like 3.5 to 4 years we did every week, and then the final year we only did every other week.
Mhm.
So she like tapered it. But she told me that a good therapist is constantly trying to put themselves out of business.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Our goal in our office is that we don't have people sitting on the couch forever because if we do, then we're not doing our job. So we do sometimes have to let clients go because they don't actually need us. They're using us for a crutch because they want us to continue supporting them. They want us to continue giving answers and guiding, but there comes a point where you don't actually need us anymore. You just feel like you need us. So we have to help you to let go. It can be a hard process for some people.
Yeah, I mean, it worked out in perfect timing because I was moving to New York.
Okay.
But yeah, she just looked at me and said, "You don't need me." I guess I do. You know, but she told me early on, like I said, that she gave the example of Woody. Who's the producer? Woody Allen.
I think so.
Woody
Yeah.
Allen.
Yep.
He's like I think he's got a reputation for like being in therapy with the same therapist for like 30 years or something like that.
Oh, wow.
I just remember she gave him as an example of like someone who's in like perpetually been in therapy
Mm-hmm.
and hasn't really changed. And that's like she's like, that's that's not what we're here for. We're not here just to, we're here to make change.
Mhm.
And so, I will just again passing it on. It took 5 years for me. So you're 6 months in, or even 18 months in, or even 24 months in, and you feel like, what the heck am I doing? You haven't seen any changes. It could be that you need a new therapist. That could be, or it just could be that because they may not have the same, they might not mind. They're not that they're being, not that they're trying to like just take your money, but they're just
Right.
not aware that they're not really helping you. That could be it, but it could also just be that you need more time.
And some people go to therapy because they think that they're ready to start working. They're actually not. They're still too scared to be able to start the work. So it takes them longer for you to get through that wall, even of being able to say, are you actually ready to work? And are we ready for change? Because some people, it is so comfortable to sit in what we know, and it is uncomfortable to have to take steps to make change. It can increase their anxiety, increases fear, and it just makes them feel so uncomfortable they're not willing to actually take that step.
Yeah. I took, like I said, I took like 5-6 years off after that, and really maybe even longer. I did a little bit more. A lot of I actually met my husband, and he's now my husband, but we were just in a relationship, and I thought that I had like done all this work and like, let me tell you something. When you are in partnership with somebody who you already know. You already know. When you're in partnership with somebody who is, long, like this is someone who's you're deeply connected to and you want to do long-term things with, it is likely if you have unfinished business or whatever, maybe not, it is very likely that you're going to go head to head with that person. And it's going to bring up all kinds of stuff. And you're going to feel like they're your enemy and, all those things. And, so we went back to see my therapist, a little bit of work. So, yes, so that was my next experience. And then, I was not open to alternative therapies because I went to prison for a year for drugs, for controlled substances. So I was not open to any controlled substance. I was like, nope. I made a decision when I got out of prison that I would never go back. Not that that is what puts you there, but that I was just very much like, it's a boundary for me.
And that's okay. We all have to have our boundaries. And when we've had negative experiences, we're absolutely going to put those up.
Yeah. But I started working with that organization that helps women trauma healing in prison, in and out of prison, or formerly incarcerated and currently incarcerated women, and really got involved into the mental health space. And these alternative therapies have been popping up for the last 7 or 8 years. And when I first found out about ketamine clinics, I was so angry because I didn't understand it,
Mhm.
and I thought that it was going to be like a methadone clinic.
Okay.
So methadone clinics, they're supposed to help people with heroin addiction, and they do. Not to say that they don't, but a lot of times what happens is people just get hooked on methadone.
Yes.
And it's very similar to the therapy, like the crutch of therapy. If you do not find a therapist that wants to put themselves out of business, wants to make everybody not need them, then all you're doing is just you're just doing the same thing over and over again. And I just thought that's what ketamine was doing, was disguised as mental health, disguised as this helpful thing, but really they're going to get people hooked on this horse tranquilizer.
Right.
That's what it's typically used for, large animal
Yep.
veterinary services. So anyways, very against it. But when I got involved with this organization, I got into the mental health spaces and got introduced to a woman who owned a ketamine clinic, and she had a podcast, and she invited me, and we talked, and um, it was I was really nervous about being in her clinic. I was very nervous because I was like, I'm not going to do this.
Mhm.
But I like her, and I like that she, like she's helping people. And after talking to her, I don't know, she kind of piqued my curiosity.
Okay.
So I signed up. I signed up for a ketamine series, and it's 6 sessions. And they typically want you to do them pretty close together because the idea is to make your brain kind of mushy. I know it sounds like a bad word, but like neuroplasticity is what they're trying to address, where you're open to new ideas and you can create new habits really easily and you can think differently. So they like to do them like within 2 months, even sometimes even within 1 month, 6. And I was like, hell to the no, I'm not doing that. I'm going to come one time every once in a while, and I think it took me like a year, almost a year, like 9 months to do my 6. Like I don't know, I think it took a year. It's very, very slow. I'm a slow adopter, untrusting. And so what happened, I went in for, the reason that I went to the clinic was because I wanted to address PTSD. Because what I had learned is that my military, I had a sexual assault while I was in the military, and I had never addressed it. And I just didn't even think that it was bothering me until I wrote a research paper for grad school on the military justice system, and it came up, and I was like, I've never addressed this. And then it was like, okay. So I was going for that. I was going like, let me be open to help, because I didn't really want to talk about it. I didn't really think there was anything to talk about, but like, it's there, it's affecting me. When you've had any type of sexual trauma, which most women have.
Yep.
Like, pause.
Yeah.
Most women have sexual trauma.
From some point in life, whether it's when you're a child, a teenager, a young adult, or even a full-grown adult. Yes.
That is fucking wild to me.
It's a big topic.
I don't have a statistic, but I would put my money on the 90th percentile that most women have had some sort of, there's a word for it, but undesired physical contact. I think that's what they're calling a lot of actual men who've had sexual trauma who can't wrap their brain around saying that they've been raped.
It's much harder for
They
them.
They can't say it, so they say unwanted physical contact. So I'm just going to go with that label for all the ladies out there, because a lot of ladies have that. A lot of women don't want to say that they've been raped. they don't want to own that label, fine. But most women, if not every woman, has had, you know, it's just, it's a thing. And there's a spectrum.
Absolutely.
There's a very, very, you know, there's a spectrum.
Mhm.
And sometimes it doesn't really matter how aggressive the physical contact is. Sometimes the emotional damage and the distrust that it creates is the same, regardless if it's very small or very big.
Right. Because it's still, my body was not safe and somebody did not honor me.
My body was not safe. Yeah. Oh, I just, yeah. Yeah. So I was like, you know, this is affecting me. This is affecting the intimacy of my marriage.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, if you have not always had autonomy over your body, how are you supposed to always have autonomy over your body, you know? So I was like, let me just be open to this ketamine series for that. Because I want to be better. And at the end of that series, I don't really think that my sexual trauma had been addressed, to be honest. Because I wasn't doing those ketamine series, those sessions in conjunction with a therapist.
Okay. Yeah.
I was just doing it and then doing reflection. But like what was
You're
the
not
first?
really processing it.
I'm not processing it, and I'm not bearing witness. I needed that witness, or someone's not bearing witness to me, is what she's saying. So, but what happened was I stopped drinking alcohol.
Okay.
Just one day I was like, I don't want to drink. And I think it was like literally towards the end of that ketamine, you know, that year. And I think that the ketamine caused that, because I think that if you understand how it affects the brain, it's making it, again, more open to, you're able to create new pathways in your brain. And the only way you're able to create new pathways in your brain is if you have two things. You have to have your brain has to be available for that.
Right.
I don't know if I'm using the right words, but you know, there's a physical thing that's happening in there with.
Yeah, you have to actually want it. You have to be ready for it, and your brain has to have the nutrients and the resources that it needs for those changes to happen.
Yeah, and I had and there was this buzz about alcohol-free lifestyle, and I had been hearing about it, and then it was like that thought in my brain, and I was like, yeah, and now I can adopt it, and I just did, and it was all subconscious. There was no like aha moment. It was just like, yeah, I don't really want to drink anymore. And I didn't really drink a lot anyway. You know, I would have a glass of wine a month. Like I was just not a drinker. But no more alcohol. So that was really cool, and that allowed me to see what the power of ketamine, like what it is. But I didn't know there was anything more than that. I didn't know that anything could go deeper than that. I did 2 other journeys, one with ayahuasca, one with combo, and I did not have any breakthroughs of any sort. I did it completely in the most natural sense, in the jungle with a shaman, chanting under the moonlight, and literally 2 hours deep into the jungle. Like I did it the real thing.
Okay.
Nothing profound.
Okay.
That is not true for everybody else. But some people have great ayahuasca experiences and all that. I just was like, it wasn't very pleasant, to be honest. And then I did a second ketamine series last year in a group setting with other veterans, all women.
How was that experience?
And a therapist.
Okay.
The most profound thing. It was like I did those 5 years of talk therapy in 2 months.
Oh, wow.
It was the most profound thing that I've ever done. And this is when I go from mental health into mindset. My complete mindset has changed. And what I have now is I have an awareness about, I had a lot of victim stories.
Mhm.
I had a lot of victim stories in my head that when you feel like you're the victim, you have to feel that. Like you can't not feel that. You have to process it. You have to talk through it. You have to have witness. You have to, but once you've done all of that, you can let go of that. Now, I did not know that. But one thing, my intention, they always ask you your intention when you do your ketamine series, or not, I guess not always, but the clinic that I went to, the sessions that I went to, we had an intention for the whole shebang, and then we had intentions for each session. So what do you want overall on these 6 series? And then what are you desiring for each one? And the thing that I kept saying over and over is, I want to see things differently. And that was really hard because I'm very stubborn and I really believe what the things that I say. I really believe they're true. Truly. I'm the biggest, I can be defensive and, argumentative and all of that. But I wanted to see things differently because I knew that what I was doing was not working.
Mhm.
And the only way to change that is to change the way I think.
Right.
And so every time I'd have a thought and I'd feel angry, I'd, okay, how can I see this differently? And I didn't want to, but I had to ask myself that question. And because I was doing this ketamine series, my brain was super open to it. These new thoughts. It was awesome. Yeah, it was life changing. So that's where I hope mental health, this big word, this big umbrella, mental health, I hope that we as a society realize that it's not just the people who are, you know, disabled mentally. Like that's not what this is. There's so many facets, there's so many influences to our mental health, and after processing trauma and family origin and all of those stories, at the core is mindset.
Absolutely.
But you can't get to that core. It's an onion when you've got all of these things around it that are just protecting they're trying to protect you. You had this horrible experience and you built a wall.
Yeah.
You built another wall. And you can't just jump to just be positive, bro. Like you can't just
No.
That's not what I mean when I say mindset. But after those layers have been peeled back, there is something in there that is very empowering, that to say, like, actually, this horrible thing that's happening to me right now, it is a gift. And I choose to see it differently. And I am empowered. And but you can't get there right away. But once you're there, it is really great. And I just hope that there's no, like, what's that called when you're like ostracized or like labeled, like stigma. I think we got to remove that. I think that everybody has this. Everybody has their own version of traumas and walls
And I do feel like there's less and less stigma in most regions of mental health. There are still some that I feel like is really sticking to. But I feel like the vision and the understanding of mental health has gotten much bigger over the last, 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, I agree. And I almost think, I don't know if you've seen this, but like it's almost like the plant medicine stuff makes it cool in a way. Like it's making it, when I say cool, I just mean like it's shifted from, oh, there's something wrong with me, to I want to optimize my life.
Right.
And I think that the real thing, therapy, anything under that umbrella, mental health umbrella, is optimizing your life. But for whatever reason, we weren't treating it that way. We were treating it like you're sick and you need something to treat your sickness. When it's like we just want to be better. I just want to be better.
Yeah, and that's what everybody should want, so that we can have happy, healthy, successful lives. And then bring up happy, healthy, successful children. Because when we're hurt and we're parenting from a place of hurt, then we're passing that down to the next generation. So yeah, that's hugely impactful. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story. Everyone's story with mental health and their journey is individual and unique. Some people have really amazing experiences with different types of plant-based medicines. Other people say, I hear all kinds of varying stories. Some people had wonderful experiences. Some people didn't notice anything. And then other people had not great experiences. Part of that could be the individual's biological makeup, but make sure that you have an experienced practitioner whenever doing any of those types of journeys, in case there is some type of negative response that you're going through. And like you said, definitely while you're doing these, make sure that you have the support of somebody there to help be that witness and to help you process the things that are coming through when you're going through these treatments, because they do open up memories for some people, physical experiences that people have reported having. So just being able to process those is very important while you are going through them. And mindset is a huge part of every day. Starting every day with the mindset that today is going to be a good day. As soon as you put your feet on the floor, really outlines the entire rest of your day. If you start the day with, it's going to be a horrible day, well, it's going to be a horrible day.
Yep.
So, but being able to take that and apply that throughout life is so beneficial and positive. Do you have anything else that you want to share with anyone today?
No, I just to say the ketamine thing. The clinic that I went to, there was a paramedic in the room during the infusion the entire time.
Okay.
And that was the only way I was going to say yes to it because of my controlled substance background. Because they can literally hit a button off and the infusion stops and the medicine's out IV. So it literally stops. So for those who are, first of all, I always recommend that because if you do an injection, too bad it's in your body versus an infusion. They can just stop the infusion and it stops the effects. So there's a lot more control. And I believe in being always doing it under the care of a practitioner. I know people don't, they do like almost like a at-home thing. Personally, I don't advocate for that. I advocate for the experts. I think it's really important to have people who know what they're doing around you
Absolutely.
when you do those things.
Yeah, I have actually heard stories of people that had an allergic response. And had they not been in a facility where there was a paramedic there, it could have been more than life-threatening for them, because their reaction was pretty huge. So always make sure that you are doing it in a controlled environment where there are professionals there in case there are any negative side effects.
Yeah, I think that was a really good point that I didn't bring up. So be safe, kids.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us today on Reinventing Mental Health. Please like, follow, and subscribe.